In summary of when Christ is formed in the believer, you go back to Genesis chapter 1 verse 1. In the beginning God created heaven and earth. That heaven and earth is the newborn creature. That is Jesus Christ in man. In Genesis 1:27, God created male and female. That is Jesus Christ, who will give birth to the church, the female there. In Genesis 2:21, God put Adam to sleep. The process to give birth to the church is Jesus Christ will die, Adam to sleep, and brought forth Eve. At the resurrection, Jesus Christ will give birth to the church. In Genesis 2:24, a man shall leave his mother and father, means Jesus will live and come to earth and will give birth to the church. You go down to Genesis 25:16-18. Rachel, meaning beauty, after giving birth to Joseph, a type of Jesus, will die to give birth to Benjamin, which is the child of God. Jesus has brothers, that is the believers. Now, what is this whole process? In Isaiah 54:5, Jesus is married, is the husband to the church, is the bridegroom. In Jeremiah 3:14, he marries and has a family. In Jeremiah 31:32, Jesus Christ is the bridegroom, is the husband, and the church is his bride. Scroll down to Romans 7:4, that the bride may bring forth fruit. That fruit in Galatians 5:22 tells us that the fruit of the Spirit is singular, not fruits, but fruit. In that Romans 7:4 and in Galatians 5:22, the fruit of the Spirit is Jesus Christ. Now watch this. Jesus tells us in Matthew 7:21-22, not everyone that calls me Lord, Lord shall enter. Some say, but I cast out devils in your name. He said, I know you not. Which means Jesus Christ does not have a child in you. If you're not his child, he doesn't know you. So it's a family affair. And so for this whole process to be consummated, the marriage, the birth, Jesus is the bridegroom, the bride is the believer. When that happens, communion must take place between the bridegroom and the bride. When communion happens between a husband and a wife, a child is conceived. 1 Corinthians 10:16. In fact, it's elaborated very well in Luke chapter 1, verse 31, 34, 35, 37, 38. A holy communion is not wafers and bread, but a communion of the bridegroom and his bride. And the bride there is the church, the believer. And so in John 1:12, Jesus says this, as many as received him, as many as are married to him, gave he power, conceived children, conceived a child. As many as received him, to them gave he power to become sons of God. As many as are married to him, he pregnates to give birth to children. So Galatians 4:17, Paul says, I travail that Christ may be formed in you. Read those verses. And so in John 4:34, Jesus says, how do you give birth? He says, my meat is to do the will of my Father. When Christ is formed inside of you, there's only one hunger. There's only one thirst, one hunger, one message. That is Jesus Christ. Remember Genesis chapter 1 verse 2. The earth was without form and void. That void there is only a place that is reserved for heaven. And heaven is Jesus Christ. So that void in man can only be filled by Jesus Christ. Nothing in this planet earth can fill it. And so 1 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 15, Paul says, I have begotten you in the gospel. I have given birth to sons in the gospel. Hebrews 2:10 now tells us it's of Jesus Christ in bringing many sons to glory. Genesis 1:1, Genesis 1:27, Genesis 2:21, Genesis 2:24, Genesis 35:16-18. Rachel, to give birth to Benjamin, died. Rachel is beauty. That's Jesus Christ. How does this come about? Isaiah 54:5. I am married to you. I am your husband. Jeremiah 3:14. Jeremiah 31:32. Romans 7:4. I married you so you will bring forth fruit, not fruits. It's singular. The fruit of the Spirit, Galatians 5:22. Love is Jesus. Joy is Jesus. Read it yourself. Jesus says, not everyone that calls me Lord, Lord, in Matthew 7:21-22 shall enter, shall see, which means, I don't know you. You don't have my baby. As a father, I married and I give birth to children. The children are the ones that I know. The baby I have, that's my child. That's the child that I know. John 1:12, as many as received him, as many as are married to him, to them gave he power, to them he pregnated, to become sons of God, give birth to my children. Paul said, Galatians 4:19, I travail for this to happen, for you to have a child. 1 Corinthians 4:15, I have begotten you in the gospel. Though you have many instructors, many teachers, but I, Paul speaking, in the gospel is the birth of the children, sons of God, because the gospel is a person. Hebrews 2:10 says, it's of him in bringing many sons to glory. So in our next video, we're going to look at the family of God, and wherefore God has highly exalted him and given him a name above all name. It's not at the mention of the name. It's not at the call of the name. But it's a family name. A birthright. A birthright to the believer. Thank you and stay blessed.